coming. I hope you can all, I wanted everybody to at least be in a comfortable spot where they could see the podium and they can also see the screens, because much of our presentation will kind of take place on the screens. Feel free, if you get crowded too, you can go past the glass wall. The sound is set up over there as well, just so you know. We want to thank everybody very much for joining us today. We are extremely excited to have you all here and just be able to celebrate the official ribbon cutting of our new Network Operations Center. Although PrimeLink has actually been in this building since 2001, today marks the start of a new era in the very long and successful journey of PrimeLink. As most of you know, PrimeLink is a subsidiary of the Champlain Telephone Company, which has been serving the northern tier, which includes Champlain, Rouse's Point, Moores, Forks, and Altona, for over 100 years. So today just marks another chapter in our long, storied history. It's now my pleasure to introduce, and I probably should introduce myself, for those that don't know me, although I've been hugging everybody. So I'm Vicki Marking. I am the marketing director for PrimeLink. I've now been here 7 years and very, very proud to be a part of all of this. I'm going to be introducing Greg McConnell. Greg is our president and general manager of PrimeLink. He came to us he now has 18 years of direct communication experience and 42 years of mid-level and senior level management experience. In his role at PrimeLink, he oversees the management and the development of PrimeLink as a whole. Greg is a graduate of Plattsburgh State, a proud Plattsburgh State graduate, and holds advanced degrees from RPI and Concordia. It's my pleasure to turn the mic over to Greg.
She wasn't kidding.
To literally turn it over to you.
Literally. Thank you, Vicki. As I look around the room, I see many friends, valued clients, business associates. I'd like to thank you all for coming this afternoon, helping us celebrate the opening of this facility and this important event. I would like to welcome you all to the PrimeLink Network Operations Center, of which we are exceedingly proud. Speaking for everyone at PrimeLink and our parent company, Champlain Telephone, I'd like to thank you for your support and being with us today. The world is changing at a staggering rate, and technology is one of the key drivers that drives this continuous change that we experience around us every day. Technology has permeated almost every aspect of our life, from over-the-top video that we experience at home to the systems and programs that drive our business every day of the week. Connectivity is essential to the education of our children and our very success as players in this global economy. The internet has grown from a nice to have 10 years ago to a must have for any company today. Mission critical is a term that we hear frequently, and we embrace it every day. 20 years ago, PrimeLink made a commitment to the North Country to deliver a world-class fiber optic network to the Champlain Valley, connecting our homes and businesses with vital broadband access. We delivered on that promise, and most recently we completed a major upgrade, which we'd be very happy to show you this afternoon, of our network, increasing the potential capacity of up to 44 100 gigabyte waves. This upgrade will provide our customers with more than enough bandwidth to serve their needs well into the next decade. However, building a fiber network is not enough. It's not nearly enough. It's only a part of the equation. What makes this announcement and celebration today so special is that the PrimeLink Network Operations Center is the only facility of its kind in this region. The center will support the entire fiber optic network, which extends from Montreal, Quebec, down to Albany, New York, with offices in Montreal, Champlain, Plattsburgh, Glens Falls, and Albany. PrimeLink serves thousands of customers with voice and data service every day throughout the Champlain Valley, and a facility of this kind is absolutely essential to running that kind of network. Managing the network and maximizing the benefit of technology for our residential and business customers takes a state-of-the-art Network Operations Center, or NOC, which we call it. It's a command center. It's the heartbeat of our network. It's equipped with the latest software and hardware. This NOC not only monitors the performance of our network on a real-time basis, but helps predict trouble spots and bottlenecks that would affect the performance of our network as well. And most importantly, the NOC is staffed with knowledgeable and trained technicians and engineers who can spot potential network issues and resolve them before they become service affecting to you, our customers. Look around. Many of the PrimeLink women and men are the staff who manage our network that you see here today. They provision new services for you. They address issues that you might be experiencing in your own network. I'm extremely proud to say that we have delivered on our second promise. And the second promise was the establishment of this Network Operations Center that we're dedicating today. And I'd like to thank you all for helping us acknowledge what technology means to our local communities. Here at the NOC, PrimeLink is always here, always monitoring, because we know your connection is imperative to your continued business success. When we planned this event, we wanted not only to showcase the technology, the facilities, our staff, but also connect the importance of broadband access to economic growth and the well-being of the North Country. Last year, I toured the Center for Cybersecurity and Technology at Plattsburgh State, where President John Ettling and his staff are currently educating a new wave of cybersecurity experts. Several weeks ago, I had the privilege of attending the opening of the Institute of Advanced Manufacturing at Clinton Community College, where President Ray DePasquale and Chris Renadet, the director of the Institute, are likewise training young professionals in the latest engineering technologies, and they will be achieving rewarding careers at companies such as Norsk Titanium, Novabus, and yes, here at PrimeLink as well, if we're lucky enough. And today we are continuing to add to the region's technology assets with the celebration of PrimeLink's Network Operations Center. These events are not serendipitous or random. Global companies like Norsk Titanium did not pick Plattsburgh, New York without extensive site selection research that examined the facilities, the workforce, the educational support institutions, and the technology infrastructure before selecting their final location. I understand Norsk sorted through locations in 48 states before choosing Plattsburgh for their U.S. manufacturing headquarters. Quite an achievement for our area. All of these institutions that I just mentioned create a synergy of technological training and innovation, and will certainly attract other companies to our area who value the availability of these resources. In closing, I'd like to suggest to you that the North Country, and in particular Plattsburgh, with these strategic assets, is rapidly becoming a world-class center for technological excellence. With that, I would like to introduce our Assemblyman, Billy Jones, and ask Billy to say a few words.
Sure. Do I need that? It's going to take me longer to put this on than it will for my comments. Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here today, and it's really exciting to be here to open this Network Operations Center. And I travel all around the district and all around the North Country, and maybe probably the number one concern from our businesses, our schools, our residents is technology, and how do we connect to the rest of the world. So having this here and having PrimeLink be a leader here right in Plattsburgh and in the North Country is extremely important. We need to stay competitive in the technology field to be competitive economically. So I think this is important that we have this here today. I congratulate you, and keep up the good work. We need to keep continuing to do more of it. You certainly take a lead, taking a lead in it. So I do congratulate you in that. But we need to continue to build upon that. And we have partners in this room that are doing that, and we need to keep it up. So congratulations. Thank you.
There are a few people in the North Country who are as knowledgeable about the economic growth of our region and what it takes to succeed as our next speaker. He was introduced to the North Country in 1992. The week of the BRAC Commission announced the closing of Plattsburgh Air Force Base.
Still trying to make up for that.
And welcome to Plattsburgh, Gary. And the facility that you're standing in today. For the past 25 years, all he's done is really whatever it takes to make this community a better place to live. You all know Gary Douglas is the president of the North Country Chamber of Commerce, but he's also the co-chair of the North Country Regional Economic Development Council. As Governor Cuomo said earlier this week, over the past 7 years, Gary and the council have delivered well over $500 million in New York State's support for numerous projects throughout the North Country. No one understands better the role that broadband plays in our future development, the importance of fiber optics and network centers like this one we're celebrating today. And with that, I would like to introduce a tireless advocate for our region and our community, our featured speaker, Gary Douglas.
Somebody write those words down. My annual review is coming up and Greg's on the committee. I really appreciate that. Maybe that's a heads up for me, I don't know.
It's up for me.
It certainly looks encouraging. Congratulations. This would be one of those occasions anytime a local business is showing investment, preparing for the future, growing in the community. It's a good day, and it's a good news story, and it's a good time to gather around and say congratulations and be pleased about that. But every once in a while, one of those occasions involves something that really has strategic importance, well and above the normal circumstances of a business making an investment and adding some jobs and doing some good things in the community. This is one of those cases, and I can think of 3 ways that that's very true. I had the, most of the time, pleasure, not always pleasurable, but most of the time pleasure of being the vice chair for the first decade of the Plattsburgh Air Base Redevelopment Corporation, which starting in 1995 was tasked with this mammoth city within a city, figuring out and facilitating and encouraging what would happen next. And as you heard, this facility, this was the communications center for the Air Force Base. It was all telephones in those days, and weren't even thinking about the internet or broadband or those things. That all came later, thanks in part to PrimeLink. But PrimeLink was one of the early tenants out here, and then an owner and an investor in the redevelopment of this facility. And it's good to remind ourselves of that anytime we come out here, and particularly we see a success story here on the ground with one of those former Air Force facilities. And so many in the community who had confidence, but others who didn't, who said, oh, they'll never be able to reuse that 3 million square feet of building space out there. Oh, should just throw the keys at the Air Force and tell them to keep it. You know, it's just too much. We can't turn that around. And we did. And a lot of people were part of that, but the people who were most a part of that were the companies and the investors who stepped forward, building by building, piece of land by piece of land, until just recently, down to the last couple of parcels of land out here now, some 20 years later, to make good things happen out here and make this an economic center, a private sector oriented job creating center out here. We didn't go the easy route that perhaps some bases did who proclaimed success because some new federal facility was brought in there to kind of bring jobs in. And then, by the way, they were at risk again when those came up for closure. This base is now a center of entrepreneurialism. There are dozens of companies and investments like this that makes it diverse, it makes it dynamic, and it makes it resilient. And thank you to PrimeLink for being part of that and continuing to be part of that legacy and that story of reusing this facility. But then something else, secondly, that Greg mentioned. There's nothing more important to the success here and the success in our region generally, you may have heard me say this once in a while, than our connection with Quebec. And PrimeLink has been a leader in the telecommunications sector for building, facilitating, nurturing, expanding our connectivity in this Quebec-New York corridor in that realm as well. And so again, very strategic player in a very important part of that connectivity with Montreal, which used to be the shoppers and the vacationers coming down here, but now it involves the most strategic factors in our binational economy, including telecommunications and broadband connectivity. And so thank you for stepping up and being part of that equation and helping to build that connectivity. And thirdly, finally, you hear the chamber say all the time as kind of a fundamental precept for economic development strategy in this area, that where things move is where prosperity occurs. You may have heard us say that a few times through the years. That fundamentally we believe that rising and fading zones of prosperity can be traced in accord with shifts and dominant routes of movement. That's why we spend so much time, have spent, continue to spend on things that make things move. Border facilities and operations, airport development, rail investments, etc. But in the 21st century, movement is also about data and information and telecommunications. And so broadband is a critical new part of movement. And you're not going to be a rising zone of prosperity if you don't have that form of movement at the cutting edge, at the state of the art at all times. And here again, PrimeLink and this facility are a critical part of that, and therefore a critical part of that fundamental centerpiece of all that is happening and all that we hope to have happening here in this area. And then just one final note on that. Take all those things together. Investment in being part of the successful redevelopment of this former Air Force base. Connectivity and communications and linkage with Quebec within our Quebec-New York corridor. And that sense of being part of the new century of movement and making sure that that ingredient is there for future growth. Now what's most exciting about all of that? This is a homegrown company. This isn't some company coming in here from Texas or something that's doing this. That would be nice. You know, we welcome outside investment. We get a lot of it from a lot of places. But isn't it great when we have an example like this of local folks, a locally born company that's been here for a long time, that has evolved and changed with changing technology and demands, and is being such a successful and critical part of the next generation of technology and economic growth in this area. So I would say not only congratulations, but in closing would say join me in thanking Trent and all of the team at PrimeLink for all they've done for this area in all of those ways, and for being such a homegrown success story.
I just make it easy, I just hold it. It's much easier. Thank you so much, Gary, for being here today and for your remarks. In general, we very much appreciate you being here. We appreciate our relationship with the Chamber. I myself have been involved as a Chamber ambassador for a million years, and I see all of the wonderful things that you do. We're so pleased that you could be here and join us today. Thank you. It's going to be my pleasure now to start to introduce you to some of the advanced features and functionalities of our Network Operations Center, because I know what you're all thinking is, okay, that all sounds good, but what really happens here? What is it all about? Very shortly, we're going to be actually hearing from our Director of Internet Services, but to get us started right now, we'd love to show you all a very short video that summarizes a great deal of what happens here in the facility on a daily basis. And the video is going to be shown on all the screens, so you can feel free to kind of adjust yourself so you can see well. The video was completed for PrimeLink by Paul Frederick of Frederick Productions. I have to mention Paul because he does a wonderful job for us. He does a lot of great work. He's not here with us today, but he did some fantastic work on this project. So if you'll give the screens along the wall your attention, we're going to cue up the video.
The world is now interconnected. You depend on this flow of information in all aspects of your life, your entertainment, your social connections, and your business needs. This connectivity is mission critical to all organizations in today's world. As such, customers require a network that delivers stable and reliable service. That's where we come in. We are PrimeLink, a regional telecommunications company with offices in Champlain, Plattsburgh, and Queensbury, New York. We hold a strong presence in upstate New York, home to our state-of-the-art Network Operations Center, or NOC. The NOC is a place from which administrators and engineers manage, maintain, and monitor the PrimeLink telecommunications network. It represents the center of the PrimeLink regional infrastructure and focuses on proactive, user-focused support. It's the central point for troubleshooting, performance monitoring, and coordination and dispatch of personnel in the field. Our dedicated experts manage and optimize communications 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Using exceptional tools and processes in the NOC, our technicians can proactively identify and solve potential network threats before the customer is even aware of them. From the workstations located in the main observation room highly trained technicians can monitor environmental factors such as weather events and commercial power outages that may affect the network, as well as more technical issues such as bandwidth usage and abnormal traffic patterns to ensure the core network is stable and secure. The monitoring services available here provide detailed metrics and visibility to each customer's connectivity and bandwidth usage, allowing clients to keep operating at peak performance with seamless communications. At PrimeLink, we're always here, always monitoring, because your connection is not only necessary for your business's success, it's needed in every aspect of your life.
How's school, honey?
So that way you're going to get a lot of more information in more detail, but that'll give you a little bit of a summary of kind of what takes place in this room on a normal basis when we're not hosting people. Usually seats are filled, phones are ringing, and by the way, people are getting their phone calls answered today, just in case. Just by our staff up in Champlain right now. It's my pleasure next to introduce our Director of Internet Services. Eric Amalikson is the Director of Internet Service, and in his position, Eric is responsible for the day-to-day management of our NOC, our Network Operations Center. He's also responsible for the strategic planning and delivery of all of our internet-based services. Eric actually has over 25 years of experience in providing enterprise-level IT management services. He holds a degree in business management as well as an electrical engineering and computer science degree from the University of Vermont. Yes, he's a friend across the lake. Well, please welcome Eric. And he's hiding in the back.
Hello, I'm Eric Amalikson, and I'll try to keep this up here so everybody can hear. I'll go into a little more depth of what you just saw in the video to let you understand some of the benefits of what all this technology and the investment that PrimeLink has made. I want you to keep in mind what the NOC actually means. It's not just a bunch of monitors. It's not just people sitting in certain rows. It's actually an effort to proactively and continually improve processes to provide better and better services. So everything that we've done to date really feeds into a process improvement. And so what you're looking at is different tiers of engineering. So as calls come in, you will be passed from a tier 1 group that handles 70% of the calls. They get the "my mouse isn't working" call. They get, I have some static on the phone or whatever. And as they triage that, we have implemented processes to most efficiently answer the customer's questions. That will maybe pass a call to the tier 2. So what you're seeing is a structure of efficiency where you're looking at tier 1 right now in front of you. Tier 2 is over to the right. As calls get escalated, they will pass to another set of engineers that may have more specialized experience in a certain, what I call, swim lanes. So you have technical swim lanes, and we'll use voice as an example. So if we have a voice ticket that comes in, we'll have it come into a couple of the tier 1s, and as it gets more specialized, it will pass to the next set of engineers that have more experience to resolving that issue. So again, the NOC is not just a bunch of monitors. It's not just people sitting in rows, but it is a concerted effort to making every product that we have improved and the services better. So I'll go through, and actually I'd like everybody to go through here with me. I'm going to point to the screen so that you can understand some of the tools that we have in the work that we do every day for you as a customer. So we are proactively monitoring bandwidth. We're proactively looking at systems that are talking back to us. These are switches, routers that are talking back to us on a real-time basis. And you'll see that update with various colors and meanings. But this is all leading into a heartbeat of the whole network. The whole region is actually being represented here on the screens. So if we were to have an issue, maybe it's a fiber cut, for example, if somebody ran into a pole, we would start seeing various things on the screen, report that to us, alert us in our pockets, on our phones, that we have issues. So we'll be the first to know. We'll be the ones calling you, telling you, oh, you have an issue, you don't know it yet, but it's about to happen, or we already know about it, people are dispatched out. So that's the first part of this. We look at weather patterns. So we're predictively, expecting a pattern of storms to come across. Maybe it's in Albany, maybe it's coming across the Champlain or the CTC area. So we'll know ahead of time to alert, hey, we might need some more people on, in the trucks to go fix the power outages or the modems that get fried by the electricity, by the lightning. So this here is an example of, here's the weather pattern that's coming across. It's a live feed that you would see on any streaming radar. So we'll see that, we'll say, hey, something's coming across the area. We'll go over on the very far screen, second to the end. That's actually the NYSEG power grid. So we can see that if it went through, Plattsburgh, and we see the outages in Plattsburgh, we'll know ahead of time we're going to be getting calls. So we may tell our customer service, hey, be aware, we're going to be getting some calls. Let them know that there's power outages in the area, and as soon as the utility comes up, they'll have their service restored. So again, it's proactively knowing what's happening with our customers' experience. Again, this is a central point here where this is an aggregation of information. Up here in the upper left, let's say a customer calls in and says, I have slowness. My network connection's really slow. What's going on? How come your network's slow? Well, we can take a look at the traffic flow to that customer and say, well, Johnny out in the warehouse is streaming Netflix, and so is Sally in accounting, and they're taking 90% of your bandwidth. It's not our service. It's, you may want to go to them and
You just
say,
got Johnny in trouble.
we're helping businesses. We're helping businesses with their efficiencies. So there's tools like that that can help, not only the business understand that, they can better manage their networks internally, but it's also more information that says, yeah, it's not upstream, or maybe they are maxing out their bandwidth. Maybe it's a true business need. We'll say, we'll pass you over to sales, but you're at 90% utilization. You may want to bump that up. So it's that kind of information from this screen here. This is looking over on the right hand, some virtual machines that we have that are serving various parts of the network. We have a heartbeat of what those virtual machines are doing. Down here is actually a log system of voice calls. So in a minute I'll mention our hosted system, our hosted voice product. Right here we're looking at an outage that is actually a off-premise competitor's network. We do hosted voice, and we will give them voice connections anywhere in the country. So we actually just deployed one in Missouri, or
Yes.
So we just sent phones down to Missouri. We're serving voice down in Missouri. This is an off-net network, so their internet provider is having a problem, and we've let them know, and we've actually initiated the call to their service provider for them to say, hey, internet provider, fix your problems. The next screen over on the other side, actually, I'm going to have people kind of mosey on in so we can see some of the cues that we monitor. This is an investment that PrimeLink has made in our ticketing system and some also different monitoring. It's called AutoTask, and it is a system that shows us as the calls come in, we group them in our swim lanes. So we have a voice swim lane, we have a data swim lane, some managed services, and some installer queues. So we're looking at tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, which I mentioned. Tier 1 is sitting over here, tier 2 is over there, and tier 3 is in the back. You see that representation on the screen in the various swim lanes. So we're seeing at the very top level, the most of the calls are going to be at tier 1. And you'll see in top left, network tier queue, 12 of them. We have 12 tickets in the very first queue. And those probably 9 of them should be answered in the very first call. The others are actually being escalated to the tier 2s as they run into maybe some unique challenges. We also monitor various customers that have had difficulty on their network. We monitor how many, the metrics of how many calls we get from individual customers to wrap back around with the customer service role to say, we've seen that you've had five issues with this. You know, we'd like to maybe sit down with you and understand what's causing it on your network and propose, you know, some helpful advice or services that may help them. On the very far corner, we have physical security. So not only are we looking at the heartbeat of the network, the power grids, the calls coming in, the network flow, but we're also making sure that our physical security is monitoring and making sure that nobody is getting where they shouldn't be, as well as environmental monitoring and things like that. So from the monitor perspective, this shows us a good example of what the heartbeat of our network is doing. So everybody's able to see the heartbeat. They also have the same abilities at their desktops to see the same screens, but also there's other monitoring systems that we invoke as well. Another investment that we've made, not only in the physical structure, but is also in the personnel. You know, the senior management is really committed to serving the customers and making sure that the personnel, the calls are answered on the first couple rings, that we have enough people so that you're not sitting in a queue for 5 minutes or waiting for a callback for days on end. We've also invested in a floor supervisor who is right behind you, Ron, which he's taken over the role here in March or so. And that's an investment to actually make sure that these queues are being watched, making sure, you know, we say it's a customer advocacy role, so that he's looking and making sure that the tickets are not being stale. They're actually, you know, within a couple hours are being answered, not sitting there and getting old and the customer getting frustrated. And again, that's all based on how urgent the ticket is. So if somebody has an outage, we actually have outage queues. So if it's outage, you know, our first attention is that, making sure the customer is up, modem equipment's replaced, or whatever the issue is. And that's Ron's job, is to make sure that the queues are being efficiently managed. We have rules within the system that manage themselves, but at the same time, you know, he adds that extra level of oversight to make sure that the customers are being taken care of. I think from the NOC physical perspective, that's pretty much it, what you see from the physical side. There's a lot of processes and procedures that are behind that. Ron is reminding me. What you just heard, there's other technologies that we've employed, which I've forgotten about. And what you're hearing is background noise. And this is a commitment to making sure that our focus is on the customer that we have in hand. And you hear kind of the static noise. It's a technology that blocks out somebody talking on the other side of the room or even right next to you. And so your mind is not picking up the conversation next to you, but they're focusing on who's on the phone call. And we call it, it's a sound curtain. And I think the best way of explaining this is it injects like vowels into the air so that the words that you're hearing aren't, you know, from across the room aren't going into your mind and you're not paying attention to that conversation. So it's another technical investment that the company's made to make sure that we have a really professional, focused service to the customer. So I think at this point, we can roll right into the hosted presentation. We have a slide deck, which this is an example of one of the services that we most recently have rolled out. It's hosted voice. And I'll go through the slide deck and explain what this is and what it means to you from a business perspective. We can go to the next one. So hosted PBX, traditionally you've had a box in your office which has been your phone system. That's the PBX. It's been a capital expense, an operational expense for years. And everybody's heard of Skype and all the, you know, these voice over IP service providers. It's similar to that, but it's really a replacement of that PBX. A lot of the PBX had functionality, hunt groups, various automated attendance and things like that, some features that you wouldn't get from a traditional Skype. The hosted PBX is actually taking that capital cost and a recurring investment every 5 years or so, when you have to pay for upgrades, you have to pay for administration, takes all that cost out of the business and turns it into an operational cost. And it's basically, you can budget on a per seat basis and say, I have 20 employees, I'm going to pay for 20 seats, and that's what I budget. I don't have to hire somebody to come in and replace cards or upgrade the operating system, it really helps the business budget and plan more effectively. As well as you'll always get the most available features, most recent features applied at a central location. So what this represents is basically a replacement of the PBX, and it puts that responsibility of administration on the telephone service. Okay. It also allows the customer to have an administrative portal into their virtual PBX. And they can go in, they can change the names on the phones, they can change buttons, they can change hunt groups. They can do all of this just like they did before, usually with a lot more features than they had before. But they still have that personal control of their own voice environment. They can change the greetings, holiday greetings or whatever. So it really replaces what functionality they had on host, but it puts it off into the cloud, if you will, and that's a PrimeLink cloud. Okay. Again, the comparison, and this is where the efficiencies of some of the services that we're continuing to invest in and provide new services. The hosted system isn't a huge capital investment. It's, again, a budgetable seat-by-seat licensing cost that you can say for 12 months, I have 10 people, I'm going to pay, I don't even know the numbers, but let's say you're going to pay $20 a month per seat. It's easily budgetable. You don't have the hardware failures that you have to pay $5,000 to replace a chassis or a card that failed. It's a known cost. So it gives some solidity to the business's financial budget. Again, there's advanced features and continual upgrades and features as the industry improves or adds features into the telecom world. Those come as a byproduct. As we upgrade our systems, you automatically get those features. Okay. This is an example of the PBX environment of old. You used to have to support 2 different networks in your business. You had a phone environment, different set of wires. You had a different set of wires for your network and your computers. And then you also had the PBX router switches to maintain. As we move into the hosted environment, go ahead. The next slide to the right is the combination of the two. You no longer have to pay for the physical PBX on a yearly basis, the maintenance. The network is the same. The phone network is the same as your computer network. So the switching environment, you're aggregating all these pieces into one network rather than 2. And then the responsibility of the administration and upkeep and maintaining is in the cloud, and that's the PrimeLink cloud. Okay. So there's many reasons on the hosted voice system that make a lot of sense business-wise. And this is a fairly new product that we've really rolled out. It's one of our flagship products. It's keeping us very busy at the moment. The network operations monitors the status of those systems, make sure that the voice calls are, quality of calls are maintained. From the why does the business, should the business look into this? Financially, budgetarily, it usually is a significant cost savings. Performance improvement, feature improvement, and especially, we just did a rollout of a 5 or 6 location business just in the last week, where regionally, if you have 5 locations, that's 5 PBXs. That's 5 maintenance, that's 5, all the hardware costs of 5 different sites, you roll into one, and it's still a per seat. So you get rid of 5 PBXs, and you pay a per seat cost. So where it really makes sense is those multi-location businesses, campuses, and so that's why we're bringing this, to make sure that everybody understands it's a product that could really save businesses money and bring this area forward and have cost savings. So go to the next, and I think that's the last slide. If there's any questions on PBX, hosted PBX, Brian over here, who's waving his hand furiously, is our expert in-house that can answer any questions specific to hosted voice. Any of our engineers, if you have questions of what they do, how they do it, feel free to ask them. And we were going to do tours in the back, and I think we'll shift that to the end. If anybody's interested in going to the back, we'll show you the 3-foot ceiling, bomb-proof ceiling that we're underneath. And what we're doing, we have a lot of projects, as Greg mentioned. We just finished up a new transport 100 gig, 4400 gig wave system, which you'll see right as you walk into the central office back there. So if you're interested in that, we can move into, or at the end of this, we can move into some mini tours and give you some more, maybe even a deeper dive into technology. If your eyes glass over, I'll stop and move forward. But feel free to ask us any questions. But again, the buzzword or the key words are process improvement. The NOC is really all about that and making sure that our customers have the best service possible.
Thank you, Eric. Now we're going to move to the conclusion of the program, which is the ribbon cutting. I'm going to invite everybody to follow us out into the parking lot. I don't know what my range is in this. Now I'm going to invite Trent Trahan to come up and man the scissors. Trent is the president of Champlain Telephone Company and CEO of PrimeLink.
Is there a training manual? Don't run with those.
We didn't have him do a practice run, so.
This is live.
Where do you get things like this? Scissors are us.
Hold it nice and tight for him.
Yeah.
All right.
We really invite you to all come back in. We have refreshments in our boardroom. There's drinks, there's snacks, and as Eric mentioned before, we would love to be able to give you a small group tour, bring you in the back so that you can kind of see where everything happens. That's the really exciting part. So please come back in and join us, and thank you all again for being here today.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
We have moved behind the door, not a green door, but a brown door. And we're here with Eric. What's your last name again, Eric?
Amalekson. Try it. Amalekson.
I won't try to spell it.
Right. Took my wife about 6 months to figure out how to say it. So what we're looking at here is some equipment which is called transport equipment. And that brings large capacities of bandwidth from Montreal down to Albany. We have various other racks and equipment which are co-location equipment by First Light and other companies that co-locate in this facility for interconnectivity. So that may have been a little too geeky for you.
Okay, okay.
So
you're bringing bandwidth.
Bring bandwidth up and down the corridor from Montreal to Albany.
Okay.
And
that ties in with.
Well, then it gets distributed regionally.
And
so
back upstream, down the other way. Where is it going?
We have various redundant connections out to the internet, both in Montreal and down south in Albany, as well as across to Vermont. So we are redundantly postured with 3 different paths that we can go across. And what that does is it gives us the ability, for maintenance. We can take one side down, maintain connectivity for everybody.
That's right, because if you've got trouble with one line, your whole system isn't shut down.
Exactly. And that theme carries through to all the projects that we've been working on. What you can see down here on the floor is a brand new, it's about a $250,000 investment to provide redundant switching connectivity. So once you come off of the transport, we go into a routed environment, and then the switches actually distribute that connectivity regionally. So this environment will have redundant switching capacity and path capacity through this facility, both power and data. Everything that we're doing is now redundantly postured to allow us to go through maintenances without any downtime to the customer, to survive fiber cuts or any act of God, a card failure or whatnot, power failure on one side, so that we can survive those kind of things. And every data center these days must have the redundant posture that we're providing today.
Now I know you go down to at least Glens Falls. Now, is that all underground between here and there? I know
It
years
pops
ago-
up. It pops up. We have multiple paths down to Glens Falls. Again, redundancy, and it takes different paths. Some of that is underground. Some of it comes up. You know, it really depends on the fiber path that was taken. As fiber is laid, sometimes you have no option except going aerial. Let's say you have just sheer rock. You're not going to go through that. But we have various paths that we take, and again, that's for the redundant posture that we have, both north and south.
Because, you know, whether we like to think about it or not, you have to worry about sabotage, not
Sure.
just accidents or
Sure.
freaks of nature happening.
Right. Well, there's actually a funny story over in Vermont. There was actually a fiber path that was shot at by some kids. They're out there with their .22 or small gauge gun, and they were shooting at a bird on a wire. And so they're shooting it. They hit the fiber, and unbeknownst to all the carriers that were on that, you had AT&T, you had Sprint, you had MCI, you had Comcast. All these carriers, they all went down because they all followed that one path. And so that was, it was about 15 years ago, 20 years ago, that happened. So again, we're redundantly postured, not only in the transport, not only in the switching environment, not only in the routing, not only in the power. So we have redundant power grids that come into this facility as well. We have, battery backups, generators. So all these things that we're investing in going forward is redundantly postured to be the very best service provider in the area.
So if the ice storm hits again,
Well, there is the ice storm, and that has other consequences. That the last mile connection is usually the most susceptible to those single points of failure. What you control as far as redundancy, you push out as far as you can into that area, but there is a last mile that gets you to the house.
Right.
If it's from the pole to the house,
we've got problems.
a limb falls on it, you're still going to go down.
Right.
So you eliminate that as much as possible where the resources are available, and we push that out as far as we can to have redundancy to all of our customers. And even in the cities, we have rings in this area, not just within the data center, but we'll have a ring that provides redundant loops so that doesn't happen.
All right.
So we can move on down here. Some of what we're doing, want me to stay on this side?
Yeah,
Sorry.
good.
I'm used to being on that side. There are so many projects that we've undertaken in the last 2 years. Some of those are, the IT life cycle, getting to the end of the life cycle of various voice platforms. This one that you're looking at is the green and the brown cabinets. That's an old voice switch. That's going to be gone within 2 years, and that's going to be replaced with basically one of these cabinets. So the efficiencies of heat generation, of electrical consumption, of pure footprint taken, the efficiencies that we're going to be gaining will allow us for co-location location. So this area here is companies that want to bring their equipment here, use the electrical, use the cooling, the redundant posture that we're building. They can, on a monthly basis, have their equipment here and take advantage of that. All these 9 rows are going away and going to allow for that capacity where a company, let's say it's a small company, and they want to bring their servers, their backup servers here. Their primary servers are in their office, but they're going to do their backups to this location. Well, they immediately get an off-site backup. If their servers go down or if their building catches on fire, they'd be able to operate on their redundant equipment here. So this facility will be even more valuable to the businesses in the area to be able to co-locate their equipment here and have redundancy, contingency of operations, and disaster recovery.
I say within 2 years.
Yep.
How long has this process been? When did you start realizing you're going to be downsizing there to the newer technology?
Yep. So for the last year and a half, we've been planning, and it's already underway. So we're actually putting in pieces of it up in our Champlain office for the redundancy part. What we'll see is row by row, we'll be decommissioning this equipment. So we're in the process of decommissioning some of the Champlain equipment as well as we speak. How long has it taken? It's probably about a year and a half to 2 year planning process, just from the budgeting, making sure that everything's sized correctly, Some of it was dependent on the design of the network that we've been doing as well. So in parallel, we've had many, many projects, as you've heard in today's presentation, not only the formation of the NOC, but also the infrastructure, the transport, redundancy there. So it's taken a year and a half, but we're looking at having this totally done within the next 2 years.
Will all this valuable equipment have any value after that happens, or is it just going to be scrap?
What we try to do is resell it to a market that may be maintaining this equipment for longer than what we would be comfortable with. Some companies will maybe need some cards that they need to swap out. They may buy a rack at a time, but we will try to sell this off to a reseller, a telecom reseller that specializes in that.
And one of the dangers that comes to my mind is when it's been a process that takes a couple of years like that, you don't know what's going to be available a couple of years down the road.
Sure.
So it's like that. People used to say, "Well, I'm going to wait for the next upgrade before I buy that new phone or whatever." You guys can't wait for the next upgrade because you got to be ahead of the curve.
Right. And again, we're being proactive in making sure that our IT life cycle is followed, and we're making sure that we're moving everybody to the next platform that is redundantly postured. And as these things age out, it gets harder and harder to find some of the cards when they go end of life, end of support. So we're ahead of that curve, and we're making sure that our customers are on platforms that are well supported.
Okay.
So as we go down a little further, we do have the bomb-proof roof, which not many service providers can say, hey, our
That was
infrastructure.
here already, though, right?
Right. This was part of the central command from the Air Force. So I believe they had 2, maybe 3 different central commands. One of them was the Plattsburgh Air Force Base, and what you're seeing over here is called the frame. It's where all these copper wires are, and that feeds all of the facilities on the old base, now residential and businesses, with copper service. So we still do provide some copper data services over DSL over the existing copper plant. And so, again, most of this will be gone in 2 years. What's on the back section there is distribution for our fiber networks, and that's what goes out to the Plattsburgh community, where we're distributing our bandwidth, internet, and voice services to the Plattsburgh community.
So I know you've got a large presence in Glens Falls area. Is that all handled through here also?
Everything is redundantly handled, not all through here, but this is a major point of presence. Glens Falls some traffic comes through us. The nature of the internet is that it'll go to the quickest path. So some traffic may come from Montreal and go down to Glens Falls. Some may be coming up from Albany and going to Glens Falls. So our whole network serves the whole region. And when you posture your network redundantly, it's not one piece that can fail. It's multiple areas that will serve everything.
Now, in your line of business, you've got to be constantly on top of things. Are the things that are happening now that you couldn't have imagined 5 years ago that you said, no, that one?
There's a lot of things that surprise us. That we look at our Star Wars background, we look at Star Trek, and look at the flip phones, and we look back at how many things really came to fruition.
Right.
So I think the migration to hosted voice is one of those things that is really, one of those things that all the voice services are no longer on the copper lines. Everything's going across your internet connection. So that's been a very large component of our service that's really grown in the last year. The last 5 years, I think maybe some misconceptions about cloud services might have been a surprise. Cloud services are usually, it's a marketing buzzword that, we'll just put it out in the cloud. I think the understanding of what should be pushed out in the cloud and what should be kept closer regionally is an important thing. Cloud services have grown quite a bit, and now there's kind of a shift back to, all right, I put all of my peanuts, in the cloud, and my performance is impacted because that cloud is now pushed over to Asia or Germany, and you don't know where your data is sometimes. So some of those trends have shifted back. And a localized cloud like we have here, we represent a cloud for the region. So when people say, hey, I'm going to move out to the cloud, well, that's also a local cloud. So I'd say cloud is probably one of those interesting transitions in the last 5 years that we've seen.
Yeah, there's no telling what the next 5 years are gonna.
Next 5 years, telecommuting. I think that's a big one where people try to get out of the cities. They move out to the more rural areas, which is more important, I guess, to have the high capacity speeds over our fiber to support that.
Okay, but no beaming me up, Scotty, in the near future, right?
I have not followed that technology. I'll stay with this technology.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Eric, that we should look at back here?
No, I think that's probably good. I think the redundancy of, is one of the taglines that we are continually preaching.
Oh, without that, you're nowhere.
Right. So I can show you a little bit in one rack how that manifests itself. So you have one rack representing the redundant posture of what we can provide here in the operations center. Each one of these power supplies is off of two different legs of power. So as long as the server environment and the storage environment has multiple power supplies coming off of multiple PDUs, you can have the whole power supply go away. That server is still going to remain up and running. And up top we have multiple switches. So if you lose a whole switch, you're still running fine because you've redundantly postured both the server environment, the storage area environment, the monitoring environment. It's all redundant. So I can pull. This is one of our storage area networks. This is the live leg to that. I can pull this connection. That whole network is roughly about 30 servers that are running in that environment. They didn't miss a beat. So I can do the same with not only our data connection, but also the power connections. I just can't get it back in. So as you see, you have multiple power connections. I can yank the power. I can yank the power on that. All the power is going across that one side. So again, everything that we do is redundantly postured, redundantly designed for the business that wants to come in to use our data services or co-location or voice. Everything's stable as far as redundancy there.
Thank you. So that will wrap it up here on this October 19th, 2017 at the PrimeLink facility. And nice to see that this building, such a vital part of the Plattsburgh Air Force Base, is getting such good usage right now. So thanks for watching and supporting viewer-supported local television, Hometown Cable. We're always trying to show you what's best about our North Country, and I think this is another great example.